Last September, when I heard that Seiko was going to release not 1, but 4 new Alpinist models, I knew I wanted one, and I wanted to get it as soon as possible. The bigger question was which one should I get? Yet, I'd completely changed my mind by the time December rolled around, and that was for 2 reasons. The first was that I was able to buy one of the very few Akura Wayfarer prototypes. And while it's a similar watch to the Alpinist in type, it is a very different style. It's one of my favorite watches, and I just love this thing to death. And it satisfied a lot of the desire I had to get an Alpinist. The second reason was actually my Seiko 5KX review, which I think I did in October. Along the same lines, I picked one up really early on and kind of overpaid for it, as I thought the prices would remain kind of high for a while. Yet by the time the end of November rolled around, I started seeing them for about half of what I paid. But fearing that history would really repeat itself, and with the Alpinist being twice what I paid for that 5KX, I decided to hold off. And if I was going to pick up one, I'd do it the smart way. So I told myself I wouldn't buy one, at least until the prices had dropped to be more reasonable. Which really wasn't a hard promise to keep initially, as when they first started trickling out, the stores that had them for MSRP were pretty much always sold out, and the few places that had them were pretty much gouging their customers for a pretty nice premium. And it pretty much stayed that way, at least until the beginning of this week, where I happened to get an email notice from Gnomon telling me that they had some Alpinists back in stock. And since my watch budget happened to be fairly flush since I sold a few things the week before, my willpower basically crumbled, and here we are with an unboxing. Now, this is how Gnomon ships watches. It's basically this pillow airbag thing. And as a nice bonus, they did throw in a cleaning cloth with an extra NATO. But as you can see, that airbag didn't really protect the exterior box like it should have. There's some little dents here which I'm not too happy with. But regardless, inside that you do have a standard Seiko watch box with a little bit of extra bubble wrap on top. And underneath that is the Alpinist. And it simply has a little bit of saran wrap protecting the dial. But when you remove that, it's basically free. And there really isn't much more of an unboxing here. It's just pretty much standard Seiko packaging. And as you can see, I got the white or cream dial version. And there are actually 2 reasons I got this over the classic green. The first is that there are a ton of green Alpinists already out there with the SBDC089. And the new version really doesn't look much different than that. So if I was going to pay more for something, I wanted to get something that stood out. That, and I thought this white cream dial version would look a bit more casual than that green one, as it seems to sit really somewhere between a field and a dress watch, which is basically what I have my Champagne Khaki King for. So I thought the cream version would reduce any sort of overlap I already have with my collection. Although it does have a similar feel to my fully loomed Ghost Amphibia. Regardless, this one does have this sort of semi-gloss type dial in this off-white or cream coloring. And it does have these applied silver indices, which aren't very tall, but they are rather reflective. There really is no doubt that this is just a beautiful watch to look at. Yet it also has this just really compelling, interesting design. The thing is, the center starts out really clean. There's an applied Seiko logo at the top, and a ProspeX logo and text in black at the bottom. Yet as you go past the indices, you run into this very, very detailed chaptering, followed by an even more busy, detailed bezel. And it gets pretty complicated and almost cluttered pretty fast. It kind of reminds me of a fume dial, but rather than the color changing, it's more of a change in complexity. The overall design is almost identical to the SBDC089, with only the real exception being the loss of the Alpinist tag for the ProspeX one. You also seem to lose some framing around the date, but you do gain a Cyclops, for better or worse. But the overall feel of this white dial version just really has a different feel from the SBDC089s. It's cleaner and more casual, yet at the same time, it really retains just this captivating design that's almost impossible not to stare at. In retrospect, it's pretty easy to see how I caved so fast on this one. I mean, it's a beautiful field watch with an internal bezel and cathedral-style hands, and I'm pretty much a sucker for all of those. Now, I really don't want to go into too much more detail, as I haven't really had this for more than a day, and I will be doing a full review in a few weeks. But there are a few things I do want to point out. First, my impression of the Lume is that it's okay, but nothing really impressive. Although there is enough just to give the hands this faint green glow in most light. And since this version really doesn't have the best contrast for reading those hands, I think that greenish glow just really helps them stand out, and stand out enough that I haven't had any issue reading them. The strap here seems like a nice calf leather. It's really smooth and just beautiful to the touch. It reminds me of an old lambskin jacket I used to have. The strap also has a deployment clasp that's almost identical to the Orient Star Outdoor, aka the Explorient, which I recently reviewed. But I'll see if this one breaks in better than that one. And speaking of the Explorient, the finishing of the case with the Alpinist is good, but I wish it was mostly brushed like the Explorient. Here it's mostly polished except the top of the lugs, which does look fantastic, but I do fear that this is going to turn into a scratch magnet over time. The movement is one clear upgrade from the SARB 017, going from a 6R15 to a newer 6R35. You still have a standard beat rate, yet it does have an extended 70-hour power reserve, and this is something I'll test for the review. So far, there's only one thing with the design that I really don't like, and it's this small amount of orange color on the bezel, which is for the triangle for north and the text for northeast and northwest. I really just don't like how it looks with the cream colored dial. It seems almost too Halloween-y, although I do like calling this the Ghost Alpinist, so in some ways it does kind of fit. And the last thing that I do want to point out is one potential issue, and that's that there's really something going on here with the bezel and the dial, and that they're not quite lining up. And let me just show you what I mean here. If I line up the north with one of those indices, just look at where the other ones are in comparison. West is mostly lined up, but check out east and south. They're just a bit off. It's not a lot, but it is pretty annoying. Now, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, and I'll try to figure out if it's more the bezel or the dial for the full review. But I tell you, freaking Seiko, man. There's always something going on with them. No review these days is ever simple or clear-cut. Honestly, this is pretty much rant-worthy, but I'm gonna hold off till I know more and save it for the full review. Anyway, these are the immediate things that I've noticed and really wanted to point out. And I'll try to get a review done soon, but I do want to take my time and get this one done right. But let me know down below what you think of this Alpinist, or if you have any specific questions you'd like me to answer in the review. And let me know what nickname you think works best for this one. So far, I've heard Cream, Polar, Albino, and my favorite is the Ghost Alpinist. But let me know what you like. And as always, if you enjoyed the review, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.